In this lesson, we'll discover the differences and benefits of a model-to-plan workflow. So essentially, this course is going to be about taking us from an established existing model and taking us to a situation where we have a set of CAD plans that show and represent what is happening inside that 3D model. Now, essentially, this is working backwards in the way that traditionally architecture has been done when 3D visualization came into the workflow in 3D offices or in architectural offices. So just to show you here quite clearly, the way that most projects would get done traditionally, what I'm calling the planners workflow, is that first somebody would come and plan out what a certain space would work like. Basically, they would start by looking at pretty functional things such as distances and orientations and arrangements, and they would pretty much work together to come up with a solution in plan. Then that plan would get CAD'd up and it would be neatened out, and then elevations and sections could be drawn from this plan. And then once all this information had been approved and established, people would then go and visualize what the plan had basically shown. The issue I have with this workflow, even though I find nothing wrong with it because you do have the power of really working out and solving your plan first, the issue I have with it is that your building isn't really visible until the end once you've already done all your planning. So essentially, if you're not very good in terms of sketching out the 3D view of this building off plan, off this type of a hand sketch, then you will never really know what you're actually drawing in plan. For some people who are doing apartment buildings for the government or anything that needs to be quite rigorous and where the facade doesn't really matter, or where the facade is really uninteresting or less, where there's less room for creativity, then you would basically be able to use this type of planner's workflow. But the workflow that we're going to cover in this course is the opposite. I'm calling it the designer's workflow. And this is one where you're going to do a hand sketch or perhaps a very rough, crude volumetric model like the one we had done in the previous course. And then we go and model that up without having any sort of plan to work with whatsoever. All you do have are just a couple of base dimensions and geometries such as heights and widths of the site and so forth, and you know more or less the sizes of things the way they're supposed to be. You could already go and look at the span to depth ratio of certain elements such as the space frame in our case, and you can already start getting quite a functional and pragmatic level of detail within these type of models. And this is exactly the workflow that I'm going to be continuing with in this course. So the last course we basically had finished this model, and this is going to be the departure point for this course, where we're then going to take it and we're going to start drawing a plan, a section, and an elevation of this existing building. Now this one over here is just an example. We're going to do something similar in our course. So the essential steps that we're going to follow when doing this course is learning how to extract 2D shapes out of the 3D geometry. So we're going to look at all the different models that we already have done. We're going to look at either extracting a shape out of them or just going down in the modifier stack to the base geometry and extracting shapes out of that and then putting it all together. So once you've extracted them, you will then need to export them from 3D to CAD, and you will then just need to know how to export them so that by the time you get them in CAD, you know where everything belongs and nothing feels like too much of a jumble. So once it's all in CAD and you have it organized and you have the layers done, then you would want to compile and complete the plans and then go and neaten everything up so that you basically start filling in all the blanks and start arriving at having a full set of architectural design plans that you can then go and present and work with. So just a few examples just to run through of the level of detail that we're going to try and achieve in this course is we just want to get basic outlines and basic labels. Some shading may happen. We just want to get a basic design plan. We're not looking at any construction drawings. We're not looking at tender drawings. We're just looking at understanding what the building is doing in 2D as per the 3D model. So here's an example of a section, also quite basic, but it's showing us what we're cutting through. The ground is nicely shaded. It's perfectly two-tone, so we're not worried about any blue skies or anything else like that, which is heavily photoshopped. We're just looking at a good, clean, viewable design drawing. And here, lastly, is an example of a section. This one has been shaded a little bit, but we're not going to worry about that shading. We just want to get these basic elements in place. The grid lines, the dimensions. We want to get perhaps some hatching. We want to get some scale with a few people in elevation. And this is going to give us a wonderful set of presentation work that you can then use in conjunction with your 3D renders of your existing model. So once all of that has sunken in, we can begin and meet me in the next lesson, where we're going to kick off looking at our existing 3D model, and we're just going to first familiarize ourselves with what that model is doing. We're going to have a look at the layers, perhaps how we can relayer it, how we can start working with it, just so that we can digest information within that model, so that we then know how and which parts we're going to be pulling out and working with as we create our CAD plans. So hope you enjoy the course, and let's get started.